Have you ever wondered how billionaires live like kings while barely paying any taxes? I mean, we're talking about people who own private jets, multiple mansions, and spend more on a single dinner than most of us make in a month. Yet somehow, they pay less in taxes than a school teacher. Hi, I'm Andrew Meet Rich, and I used to think rich people were just better at making money than the rest of us. Boy, was I wrong. I used to be broke, stressed, and honestly ashamed to check my bank balance. I made every money mistake you can think of, maxing out credit cards, living paycheck to paycheck, thinking a raise would solve all my problems. But I figured it out, and now I want to help you understand exactly how the wealthy play a completely different game than we do. Today, I'm going to expose the buy, borrow, die strategy, a legal loophole that lets the ultra-wealthy live luxury lifestyles while paying almost zero taxes. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is documented financial strategy that's been hiding in plain sight. And here's the kicker. Once you understand how it works, you'll never look at your own money the same way again. Whether you're drowning in debt or just trying to build wealth, understanding this system will completely change how you think about assets, taxes, and building real financial freedom. Hit that like button and subscribe, because even if today's topic doesn't feel super relevant to your situation right now, the next video I share could literally change your life. Let me tell you about my wake-up call. A few years ago, I was having coffee with this guy who seemed pretty normal, drove a decent car, lived in a nice but not crazy house. During our conversation, he casually mentioned he hadn't paid income taxes in 3 years, not because he was dodging them, but because technically he had no income to tax. I was confused. Dude, how do you eat? How do you pay for anything? He smiled and pulled out his phone, showed me his investment account. 8 figures. Then he showed me his bank statement. A line of credit for $2 million at 2.5% interest. I don't sell my investments, he said. I borrow against them. My investments grow at 8 to 12% per year. I pay 2.5% to borrow. I'm literally making money by borrowing money. That's when it hit me. I was playing checkers while rich people were playing three-dimensional chess. I was focused on earning more income, which just meant paying more taxes. Meanwhile, this guy had figured out how to live off borrowed money secured by assets that kept growing in value. I went home that night and stayed up until 3 in the morning researching everything I could about asset-backed lending and tax strategy. What I discovered completely changed how I approach building wealth. And here's where most people get stuck. They think wealth is about income, but that's the biggest money trap of all. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you. If you're focused on increasing your income, you're playing a rigged game. Every dollar you earn from work gets hit with taxes immediately. In some states, high earners can lose almost half their paycheck to federal, state, and payroll taxes combined. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. But here's what blew my mind when I really dug into this. Elon Musk took $0 in salary from Tesla for years. Warren Buffett pays himself $100,000 annually. That's less than many middle managers make. Jeff Bezos took home about $80,000 as Amazon's CEO. Mark Zuckerberg's salary? $1. Are these guys living in poverty? Obviously not. They're some of the wealthiest people on earth. So what's the secret? They get paid in equity, shares of the companies they build or invest in. And here's the magic trick. As long as you don't sell those shares, you don't pay taxes on the gains. Your investment could go from $1 million to $50 million, and the IRS doesn't care until you actually cash out. Think about your house. If you bought it for $200,000 and it's now worth $400,000, you don't suddenly owe taxes on that $200,000 gain. That wealth exists on paper, but it's not taxable until you sell. The wealthy have figured out how to live off this paper wealth without ever triggering a tax event. They've essentially found a way to have their cake and eat it too. So if rich people never sell their assets, how do they actually spend money? This is where the real genius kicks in. They borrow against their wealth instead of selling it. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you own $10 million worth of real estate or stocks. You walk into a private bank, not your corner branch, but the kind of bank that serves wealthy clients. You say, I want liquidity, but I don't want to sell anything. The banker's eyes light up. They'll offer you a secured line of credit for maybe $6 or $7 million at incredibly low interest rates, sometimes as low as 2 to 3%. Why such good terms? Because you're not risky. Your assets are the collateral. If something goes wrong, they just take your stuff. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You take that borrowed money and use some for your lifestyle houses, cars, vacations, whatever, but you invest most of it into more appreciating assets. If your assets grow at 8% per year and you're paying 3% to borrow, you're making 5% profit on borrowed money. Meanwhile, that original 10 million keeps growing. In a few years, it might be worth 15 million. Now you can borrow even more, refinance your loans, or restructure the whole thing. The bank loves this arrangement because you're a constant revenue stream. You roll over loans for years, use them for other services, and they make steady profits from your interest payments. It's like having a money printer, except it's completely legal, and the wealthy have been doing it for generations. Now here's where this strategy gets absolutely wild. What happens when you die? This part of the system is so generous to wealthy families, it almost seems unfair. Actually, scratch that. It is unfair. Let's say your grandfather bought Apple stock for $1 million back in 1990. Today, that stock is worth $10 million. If he sold it while alive, he'd owe capital gains taxes on $9 million of profit. At 20%, that's $1.8 million gone to taxes. But Grandpa doesn't sell. He holds those shares until he dies. And when he passes away, something remarkable happens in the tax code. It's called stepped-up basis. Those shares get a new cost basis equal to their value on the day of death. So instead of inheriting stock with a $1 million basis and $9 million in taxable gains, you inherit it with a $10 million basis. If you sell it the next day, you owe zero capital gains tax. $9 million of tax liability just vanished. The same thing happens with real estate, businesses, art collections, any appreciating asset held until death. What about all those loans Grandpa took out? Well, wealthy families typically have life insurance policies specifically designed to pay off debt when they die. The insurance covers the loans, the heirs get clean assets, and the wealth transfers to the next generation tax-free. 3 generations can live like millionaires, and the family might never pay significant taxes on their wealth growth. It's generational wealth building on autopilot. Look, I know this might feel overwhelming or even depressing if you're just starting your wealth building journey. When I first learned about Buy, Borrow, Die, I felt frustrated that nobody had ever explained this to me. I thought, why didn't they teach this in school? But here's what I want you to understand. You don't need to be a billionaire to start thinking like one. The principles scale down. You can start building assets instead of just chasing income. You can learn about asset-backed lending once you have some equity built up. You can structure your finances to minimize taxes legally. The biggest shift isn't in your bank account. It's in your mindset. Stop thinking like someone who trades time for money. Start thinking like someone who builds systems that work while you sleep. Rich people own things that make them money. Poor people own things that cost them money. Middle-class people think a bigger paycheck will solve their problems. But wealthy people know that assets are the real path to financial freedom. Don't wait for the perfect moment to start building wealth. Don't wait until you have more money, more knowledge, or a better job. Start where you are with what you have, and begin shifting your focus from earning more to owning more. The game is rigged, but once you understand the rules, you can start playing by them too. Small shifts in thinking lead to massive changes in your financial future, and your future self will thank you for starting today.